Farrah. Welcome to my show, Fix Your Reflection First. I have had a wealth of life experiences, both good and bad, like everyone, and the one thing I have learned is that I am wholly responsible for the results. As I have evolved to liking the person I see in the mirror, my life has changed for the better, and that is what I help those that I coach do too. Please tune in every week as I will coach folks, listen to stories of success, and give you the tips and tools I have learned to make sure what you see is something you love and help you fix your reflection first. Welcome to Fix Your Reflection First and Live Your Best Life Ever. I'm your host, Rhonda Farrah, and this is Transformation Talk Radio Network. We are live, so all during our program, if you have a question or you have a comment or there's something on your heart or your mind you'd like to share, please feel free to call in. Our number is 800-930-2819, 800-930-2819. So wherever you are in life and wherever it is, if you are not living the life that you desire, the life that you want to live, perhaps the life that you dream about, you have come to the right place. So happy that you joined us today. Our program, Fix Your Reflection First and Live Your Best Life Ever, is dedicated to awakening hearts, minds, and most especially spirit to our innate power from within, our authentic power from within that we all have, the power to thrive and not merely survive. So in today's episode, we do have a special guest. We have Brenda Adelman with us, and we're going to talk about how to live an empowered life. More times than not, I am asked, what is an empowered life and how do I live an empowered life? Well, I have a lifestyle empowerment formula. And that formula is gratitude plus forgiveness equals your empowered life. Gratitude plus forgiveness equals the life that you want, the life that you dream about. And gratitude plus forgiveness equals the life that you desire, and not merely living life in default mode one year after another and settling for less. So today, as I mentioned, we welcome our special guest, who is an expert in forgiveness, I might add. We welcome Brenda Adelman. Brenda Adelman is an award-winning actress and the recipient of the Hero of Forgiveness Award and has a master's degree in spiritual psychology. She's been interviewed on over 200 media outlets, including Fox TV News, CBS, and NPR. She's performed her critically acclaimed one-woman show, My Brooklyn Hamlet, based on her life story and spoken on how to use your life story to heal, impact others, and make income for over 12,000 people worldwide for audiences as diverse as women prisoners, youth at risk, spiritual communities, and theater festivals. She is a speaker, a transformational coach, and solo show mentor director with over 200 of her heart-centered entrepreneur and creative clients performing their solo shows and talks on stages in the US, Canada, and Europe. Her book is titled, My Father Killed My Mother and Married My Aunt, Forgiving the Unforgivable, and is available on Amazon. Welcome, Brenda Adelman.
Well, thank you so much, Rhonda. I am honored to be here talking about this recipe for an empowered life.
Yes, recipe. Yes, that's another word for a recipe. We're good making the recipe. Yeah, and that is the formula, because so many people have said, what do you mean you're a lifestyle empowerment alchemist? Well, I have a formula as an alchemist. Gratitude plus forgiveness equals that empowered life. And we always talk about gratitude. I mean, gratitude is, it's maybe we don't practice it enough, or some don't. However, gratitude is an essential, but so is forgiveness. And forgiveness kind of gets a bad rap. It's not the most popular topic to speak about. And that's why I wanted you to come here today because you talk. Tell me about forgiveness, Brenda, and what you do with forgiveness.
Well, I think that's a bad rap because people believe that, they're preached to forgive and forgiveness is the right way to go, but they're not told how to set healthy boundaries, or there is also a misconception that it's condoning what someone has done. So I've definitely explored forgiveness, why to forgive, why not to forgive, what goes into it, having my own recipe or formula as well of how do you put things in the right order so that you really experience freedom. My definition is, of forgiveness is letting go of the anger, the hatred, the resentment, the vengeful thoughts, all of that lives inside the person who is unforgiving. So it doesn't even matter if the other person, if they even know that you've forgiven them, because it is an inside job. So, so my father shot and killed my mother in 1995. And then within a month, moved in with my aunt, my mother's sister, before marrying her. So I've explored this deeply because when after the shock and in the midst of depression, I just realized that I cannot keep vacillating between I love him for my father, I hate him, or it would be I'll forgive this person, I won't forgive this person, or thinking I forgave him because nothing I could do would bring my mother back, but underneath seething with anger. And for me, I call it lashing in versus lashing out, because I wasn't like angry, having angry bursts at other people. Instead, I was isolating, overeating, overworking out so that I'd, have other things to beat myself up over, versus thinking about the real thing, which was I hate my father, I love my father,
Interesting. We just had Father's Day yesterday.
I know.
How was that for you?
I had a real breakthrough. Also, I was directing a client who was doing her show last night. So I got to watch that. And her show was kind of a dedication, kind of a love letter to her dad in some creative way. But I had a huge breakthrough because I usually do spend Father's Day thinking about the good things that he left for me and the things that I embody that were good. And yesterday I was like, heck, I don't even have to post about him. Why don't I just think, like, why do I have to put a picture of him up? Like all these years, 20 so years, it's like I'll put a picture and think of all the good stuff. And yes, now I've done it, but I had a huge breakthrough. It's the first time that I called my brother, who my father was his stepfather. Normally I would call my brother on Father's Day, but usually we never speak about my father because he's, look at what he did. Look what he took from us. And instead I said, happy, unhappy Father's Day. I just wanted to acknowledge the creep that we had for a father. And it's all right. And I instead just embraced how much I love you and all the great things that we shared together. It was a breakthrough. It was a real shift for me. Yeah.
Good. So how did you decide, first of all, to forgive your father? We'll get into how you did it, but how did you decide to do that? And how long ago was that?
Well, it was a long time. It was the late 90s. She died in 94. And actually wasn't. This was in my head. I knew forgiveness was key. I was in a master's degree in spiritual psychology, and I understood the concept. I did lots of, energetic work. I'm talking to the energy, the spirit of my father versus the personality. I did all this forgiveness of judgments, things that I teach. And yet a year after I graduated, I was in a foundations class at Agape, and our final project was to do some kind of exercise. And what came to me was I wrote a poem about my father, and in it, I realized that we were one. That if I still continued to have any kind of animosity or hate toward him, I was hating myself. That was huge. So I took one of his hats that I had with the poem, and I went to the top of a very high mountain in Los Angeles at the time, and I felt angels by my side. I read the poem out, and I threw his hat over the mountainside. And as that energy left, I felt a huge opening.
I feel it here.
Yeah,
I just
and that,
don't.
I have a scene about that in my one woman show because it's so that the audience can heal as well. So, like when I have been doing my show regularly, I'll get on stage and do that forgiveness. So ceremony. So ceremony is very important. So it's a journey, and that's what I really teach about because I had that. And then I had, I went to the shamans, I went to the healers, I cut the cords, I did everything I could to feel better. I did that, which was huge. And then in 2019, I was performing in 2019 on Father's Day. I don't know why, but a friend was going to a shooting range and I had not picked up a gun since my father shot and killed my mother. And I used to shoot and I said, I'd like to go on Father's Day with you. And we went. And something healed for me in that. And I took the target sheet home and I did a fire ceremony later in the year around New Year's to release the energy in it. And then I was performing in January 2019. I still remember. And I went on stage like I had done so many times before at a place in the show, which was also very healing for me, I could talk about. And I drew the gun on my father in my head. What happened? What happened? What happened? I'd always been so angry in that place. And instead, because I had done the healing, in real life, I broke down and sobbed and I could not stop sobbing on stage. And I was so glad that I had the acting training so that I could get to the end of it. And it was powerful. But what happened was some of that anger I didn't even know was still there, had been there. And when I had done that release, sadness came through, which of course is a much more open place, So yeah.
Is that common to have residual anger, resentment?
Yeah, a lot
Once
of
you think forgiving someone.
yes, because I've been coaching for so long now, and a lot of people get mad at themselves because they feel like I already forgave that. Why am I triggered again? Or why is this person acting like that person? It's like it's a journey. It is like peeling an onion or a lemon, whatever the is, an onion, I guess. And you have to be kind to yourself and just be like, oh, I wasn't ready to heal that yet, I guess.
Right. So, yeah, because that's you choose. And the operative word is, are you ready? You're ready when it's enough.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we think we've got it all together and we've done it. I would have said, I've got nothing left to heal about my father. And then that happened, and how beautiful that my heart was able to open more. Yeah.
Exactly. Are you a believer like I am with respect to non-forgiveness is like ingesting poison and expecting the other person to die?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is, because wherever you have that, so my thing is, if I've got my heart closed down to my father,
right,
it's like it comes back on me. My heart's closed down to myself. My heart's closed down to other intimate relationships. That's what happens. So I don't tell anyone they have to forgive. No, do what you can. But my experience and the hundreds of people I've worked with, if you hold on to that, you are only hurting yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's not condoning, and here's the thing. Your formula is gratitude and forgiveness. And the way I teach forgiveness, it's many steps. And I think that is part of the problem with forgiveness. People are like, oh, you just forgive. But what I learned, because I was pretty depressed for about 6 years after my trauma shot, is that I had a lot of anger. I did not define myself as angry, right? So I didn't understand that overeating and keeping people at a distance and all that was anger. And so in my 3-step forgiveness process, in the first step, it is actually the healthy release of anger and like releasing it to the nth degree so that it doesn't leak out in other relationships and people who don't deserve it, or in other ways towards yourself.
Give me an example. Give our viewers an example of that release.
Well, I've gone to Primal Scream workshops. I cannot, I recommend them, like everybody can do for them. I'm not a therapist. You can do for yourself and like look into it. But I went to this Primal Scream workshop where I couldn't even get to the anger. This is even after my 2 years in my master's program. but it's like bataka work and screaming and all this stuff. I couldn't get to it, but I was in a group with other people and they could get to it around their mother, their father. Usually it comes down to that. And so I was able, the woman was wonderful who was holding it. So I was able to just really scream it all out, honestly. And then she was like an earth mother, and it was very loving. But there's ways to do, writing exercises, which I teach as well. And, a lot of people, certainly like you and there's other, so many people that I actually work with have done a lot of work, but free form writing is one, which is different than journaling because you're not rereading it. It's just a way to write out your feelings. There's a process for it, but a way to write out your feelings so that they're not anchored back in. You let them out and release them in a healthy way. When I was in my master's program, I did that months in a row, like 3 times in a row, every day of releasing to finally really release it around my father, and there's still work.
Yeah, that writing is important. I've done that with myself, and I've done that with clients. Write a letter. I want you to write a letter to someone that you feel has harmed you. And they look at me like, write a letter. I go, well, you don't have to mail it, but you have to write it. First, I'd like you to write a letter to yourself and let it start something like, hey, dear Rhonda, I've been meaning to write to you for some time. And, really own it. First of all, how are you?
Yeah.
I know when I had a whole series of escapades, which you know about. I know when this happened or that happened, right? I know you didn't hurt me but I forgive you. What are your 3 steps?
The first step is moving out of denial and into acceptance of what is. So that's not necessary for people who are indulging, although you could be indulging but not really seeing things clearly. So what it meant for me is, well, for me personally, I had to stop giving my father excuses, like it could be an accident, like he was saying it was. I had to actually realize that my father shot and killed my mother, that there's no excuses. But for, clients I've worked with, it's like to recognize that your son is on drugs, your spouse is cheating, like just not to necessarily make people wrong, but to see what it is instead of what we want things to be or what people might be telling us. So that is that step. But in that step is actually one of the exercises is, being completely a victim to it. You're so horrible. You did this, like really unleashing in a healthy way. Always with therapists if you need that. Because if not, it's spiritual bypass and you go to the next, it can be, and you get to the next level and it does leak out or there's all kinds of consequences for not getting in touch with it. It could just be that you don't speak up for yourself or you're afraid of anger or whatever. There's a lot of things that can happen if you don't get in touch with it. And then step 2, after you are like, because people don't want to be a victim, but they don't realize that by not actually embracing that you were a victim to someone or something, you actually stay in a victim. It's why self-awareness is like the biggest thing. But then step 2 is giving up the need to be right. Okay, that person did this. You can still have a fact, but I don't need anything from them. And it's also the part where you can open your heart. A lot of inner child's work, which you can do in step 1 as well. Inner child's work, like as you are the adult, you love that part of you that might still want their father or want that relationship. So you love that part of you, so you don't need it from someone else. But like also for me, I got into finding compassion for my father by I found a picture of him when he was younger, and I knew how horrible his parents were. His mother was. I have an exercise to put yourself in the other person's shoes, like you were interviewing them. So what was your childhood like? Do you have coping skills? So it takes it out of the feelings and actually trying to understand someone else's perspective, because the other person isn't us. Like my father, was a narcissist. I didn't know anything about narcissism. So if I was trying to get him to understand, even before my mom died, about responsibility or other things, if I understood that it was a mental illness, or, if you want to look at it like that, then I can stop trying so hard and giving my energy over and just let him be him without making him wrong, which is, that's the hero's journey. So yeah, so that's step 2. And then in step 3 is getting the lessons, having gratitude for the lessons, not for the experience necessarily, but for the lessons, and then sharing them if you can. Like for me, I share about this. I will share about what happens and that I was able to forgive till the day I die, because I know someone needs to hear it. So even if I don't want to share it for myself, I'll share it because I know it serves as an inspiration. I know it could be a trigger. And then someone can look at it, because I believe everybody is whole on their own. So they could look at it and say, oh, why aren't I giving that up? Well, if Brenda could give up that, maybe there's something give up holding on to that anguish.
Right.
The thing is, sometimes you have to have that, like I say, hard boundary at first, because if you're still in a relationship with someone, let's say, that is hurting you, maybe you don't know how to set a healthy boundary and just kind of, be able to be around them. So you have to shut them out, but you don't want to stay in that place. Like, you still don't have to have them in your life, but with that energy of shutting them out.
You, for me, you're the epitome of taking that adversity, that struggle, that challenge, that not so good stuff, that shit, and making it work for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm so thankful.
Your story is incredible. As my dad, God rest his soul, used to say, truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
So when I first met you years and years and years ago, and I interviewed you on the radio, I go, your father shot your mother and married your aunt. And it was like, yeah.
It's big. It's dramatic.
It's big.
And I feel like, but there's so many stories and so much that happens in the world. I feel honored that people come, people who work with me come to me with their secrets. So that's also one of the reasons I'm so vocal, because I know it's big. I know it's dramatic. And a lot of people who live through things, they hide. And I don't want people to hide. I want them to get the tools they need to feel better, so that they can be whole and complete and help people and have their voice. And that's why I teach storytelling too, because, when I first started telling my story on stages, it hurt after. People would laugh and people would cry, and then I go home and be miserable because I hadn't done the inner work. So then it's, there's the catchphrase, be vulnerable as a coach. It's like, well, maybe there's a reason you've hidden it. How about we work on the emotional stuff as well as the skill, All
right. What was your biggest takeaway from forgiving your father? What was the biggest benefit for you to say, I forgive you, and continue with the work in case there was a little bit of backsliding? I was like, oh, there's still a little bit. Okay. What was the biggest takeaway for you?
There are so many takeaways, but what's coming to my mind right now is that I forgave him and myself, so I was able to take him to court for wrongful death. From a place of, I'm doing this to honor myself versus I hate you and this is revenge. I don't want to live that life. But I felt like at the time I needed to take him to court and hold him accountable. And, he skipped town. Now, it was great in one way, because at the time I did take him to court, but I didn't know he'd skip town, but it was a boundary that was set. Like, because I stood up, he left. What would have happened if I didn't take him to court? I don't know. Hopefully I would have continued and set a boundary and not seen him anyway, because he was so toxic. But I don't know, because that's the way it happened. And I reconciled with my brother because of taking him to court. So if I hadn't taken him to court, I don't know if my brother and I'd be reconciled. My brother produced my show back in 2007. Like, I don't know if I'd be reconciled, because I had to use all the forgiveness toward my dad so I could show up in court to also, forgive my brother, forgive myself, for things we went through. Yeah.
Well, you have an incredible story. You have an incredible one-woman show where you are every character in your life in that show. It's really incredible. It's wonderful, and it teaches people. It shows your vulnerability, which is, I think, what people who are searching for healing need to see. They need to see that even people, we are not immune.
Oh my God, no. And I think one of the things about my show, and what I will say is, my brother and I didn't speak for 6 years after my father killed our mother. It was his father. The show, I actually don't vilify anyone, although I still play it how it is and factual. But even the story with my brother is in there, but I don't show myself as like, oh, I'm so wonderful, I'm fallible like everybody else. And I think that's the success of the show too, because a lot of times we can see shows and people or stories where people are victims and everybody else is bad. And that's not what I teach. And that's not who I am. I understand we're all human and we all have every side to us,
Right. What would you like to leave our viewers with?
Oh, I always go back to Shakespeare's Hamlet's quote, "This above all else, to thine own self be true." What is true for you? Stop making excuses for other people. Stop not telling your story because you're afraid of someone else. If you're over 40, can you please look at that you have sovereignty over your life? There are consequences, so be self-aware and speak your truth in kindness and truth,
How can people get a hold of you, and what is your website?
Best way is on Facebook. I'm all over the place there, but it's Brenda Adelman on Facebook. And I have a free Facebook group called Unforgettable Speakers Society. And then my main website is forgivenessandfreedom.com, forgivenessandfreedom.com, one word.
And we have all that information in every social platform that
Yes,
we all have that all. It's all there. Yeah, it's all there, so people can read about that even more. Well, as we close now, the reminder is, and Brenda's a perfect reminder of it, is no matter what struggle or challenge, adversity, that not so good stuff in life, we have the opportunity, if we choose, to let all of that serve us rather than anything less. So whatever tunnel you happen to be traveling through these days, that understand that the light is not a train coming at you. That light is the way, the guidance, and the opportunity to move forward in your life to be your best self, the best version of yourself ever. So thank you, viewers, for joining us. A special thank you to you, Brenda. And I'm your host, Rhonda Farrah. You have been listening to the Transformation Talk Radio Network, and this is Fix Your Reflection First. So until next time, have a beautiful day every day. And as I always invite our viewers to do, treat life like it were ice cream. Enjoy it before it melts. Thank you. See you next time. I'm Rhonda Farrah, and you have been listening to Fix Your Reflection First. Tune into Transformation Talk Radio every first and third Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time for success stories of folks I have coached. I will be sharing more of my tips and tools that you can use to love the person you see in the mirror and how to fix your reflection first. Live your best life ever by choosing to be bold and courageous, even if it means getting out of your comfort zone. To connect with me, visit helpmerhondanow.com.